Barclays and the Department for International Trade have signed a 5-year partnership that will support UK businesses to grow and expand through exporting. Rather than focus upon different international regions, we have worked with the DIT and other partners to make it as easy as we can for time-poor business owners to access key export insight. By looking at key sectors, we can help businesses understand where the global markets are and therefore reduce the time that they need to spend looking for new opportunities. This series of videos will point businesses in the right direction and ensure that the support and insight is focused around their activity. My name is Paul Bowman from Barclays, and I'm delighted to introduce Rachel Gwyon, who is the Director of UK Nations and Agriculture, Food and Drink at the Department for International Trade. And Rachel's going to talk to us about expanding your business internationally, and we'll share some practical advice for businesses involved in the agriculture, food and drink sector. Now, the views and opinions Rachel expresses are her own and do not constitute advice from Barclays. Also note that each business is different, and we do recommend that you carry out your own independent research before you make decisions that will impact your business. But without further ado, Rachel, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Paul. Pleased to be here.
That's brilliant. Would be helpful probably for our viewers if you could tell us a little bit more about the Department of International Trade and your overall role in supporting businesses to export.
Of course. So the Department for International Trade champions free trade. And what that means is we negotiate trade deals to open up markets for businesses. We also try and give those businesses and our exporters the tools, the support and opportunities they need to succeed through global trade. We drive investment and bring that into the UK, and we help promote choice and value for UK consumers, as well as improving international trading standards and upholding fair trade. And broadly what that means is we help businesses export more, get investment in, and get the value out of free trade agreements. And we do this at home through our specialist teams like the one I lead. We do it through offices throughout the UK, and we have posts in over 100 countries globally.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thinking specifically of the agriculture, food and drink sector, the one that you represent, where do you see the opportunities for UK businesses looking to grow through exporting?
The good news for this sector is the opportunities are huge. The reputation of the provenance and the quality and the innovation in the UK food and drink sector is great, and that really carries globally. So there's an appetite for products in this sector. What we find, the UK government has set an ambition called a race to $1 trillion to boost the exports from all different companies right across the UK into every market globally. It was envisaged that we would get there by 2035, but the UK ministers want to help businesses in every part of the UK get there quicker by 2030. What we're learning is that businesses that export are more productive, they're able to pay higher wages. But we find in the food and drink sector that only 1 in 5 are currently exporting. And given that a large number of those businesses have really valuable products and services that are similar to businesses that are already exporting, we think there's a great opportunity for more businesses to realise some of that ambition. We particularly find there are markets already in the USA, in Canada, in China, Japan and Hong Kong that are well developed. And there are growing markets. There's a huge growing middle class, particularly in the Asia Pacific. It's thought there will be another 2.3 billion middle-class consumers in that part of the globe by 2030. And we're seeing increased appetite, if you'll excuse the pun, for British food and drink as well in the Gulf. So products and services that are going well, alcohol and high-end goods, playing into that increased middle-class market. We're seeing a big increase and a recovery in protein commodities, British meat, fish, dairy, which are all doing well. There's a big demand for the innovation. UK businesses are at the forefront of plant-based, free from and organic ranges. And those have been they're at the highest they've been in 15 years for exports and rising 12% in the last year alone. And the UK is the 4th biggest agri-tech specialist and is well known for that as well. So those are the areas that we see particular growth.
Excellent. What tends to be the best routes to market in these regions then?
There are different things we can recommend for small businesses. A really good place to start is DIT's Export Academy, because you could go through this in your own time from the comfort of your own business. You can sign up and access through great.gov.uk. This helps you with webinars and events and information. It's trying to be user-friendly and comprehensive, and we can help you through that tool to find the right market to export to for your business, try and identify an agent or a distributor for the particular product. We can help you research a partner in market or look at understanding shipping and delivery responsibilities. So that's a good place to start. If you already have a reasonable sized turnover, if you perhaps already have the beginnings of a plan and you're based in England, you can already contact an international trade advisor. If you're based in Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland, I'd encourage you to come directly to our new teams that are based in Edinburgh, in Cardiff and in Belfast, where we can provide that additional specialist support that will take you through in a more one-to-one guided way how to access DIT services. And another big bonus is DIT's digital exporting programme. This is where we provide really good direct online access to markets. There are 50 global marketplace partners, not limited to, but including Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Walmart, Catch, Noon. And we have a capacity building online webinar programme that helps businesses get the value out of this as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. One of the key things, I suppose, is the non-financial considerations. So what are the kind of non-financial considerations that businesses factor in when considering expanding internationally?
Absolutely, that's critical. When you think about the demographics of the market you're trying to access, you think about accessibility, the supply lines, and how geographically you're going to reach that market, particularly for fresh produce. There's a range of considerations around that. There can be different market legislation in different markets, different market access, and we find for food and drink in particular that a lot of government time is focused on removing market access barriers. So do come and talk to us if you're experiencing any of those. And there are questions around the ease of doing business as well. Once you've got past those basics, there's a few questions about how your customers are going to perceive your product. Do they know and understand your product and its provenance and the particular ways you want to bring the strengths to their attention? There are different cultural considerations in different markets, which our overseas posts can help with. For example, in China, they've got a specialist unit on cultural sensitivities, and you might want to check there aren't any particular sensitivities affecting local consumers. You may need to adjust aspects of the product format or packaging changes, particularly around labelling, and there may be questions around the maturity of the particular market you're looking at for the product that you're aiming to sell. But we can help with all of that as well.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. One of the other pieces as well, though, is in effect the availability of information, the availability of insight. So how can DIT help businesses identify partners with which to trade?
Absolutely. I would always recommend the first port of call is looking at our online information, as well as great.gov.uk. You can access the export support service at gov.uk/ask-export-support-teams. Not the easiest address, but there we go. But that service provides specific answers to any questions you've got about trading in specific markets. It's designed to help SMEs. It's a free government service run by the Department for International Trade, and you can access it regardless of the size of your business. They can find you an in-market trade advisor if need be, if there's a particular question you're grappling with on next steps. You can access sector reports through our online services, market intelligence and guides. And if you're already exporting or starting to export, our staff are in over 100 markets, including dedicated food and drink experts who really understand those markets and can help you. The other things we can offer, we bring inward missions to the UK of buyers from particular countries, or there are missions you can join going out to those countries. You can also sign up for our trade show programme, particularly if you're new to considering trade shows and just starting on your exporter journey. I would recommend doing that. And again, you can access all these things through great.gov.uk. If you are in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, as well as that, and as well as the specialist sector team, which helps companies right across the UK and is based out of London, you can contact DIT Scotland at trade.gov.uk, DIT Wales at trade.gov.uk, and DIT NI at trade.gov.uk. We don't claim to be imaginative on our web titles.
Thank you very much. Rachel, thank you very much for that guidance and insight. It's been incredibly helpful. It's great to see that there are so many opportunities for businesses and to also hear of the support available from the DIT to access these markets. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Paul.
We are also joined by Arshad Dadabhoy, who is a trade and customs specialist at the Institute of Export and International Trade. Now, the Institute is a key supporter and facilitator of global trade within the UK, and they provide practical guidance and advice for all sizes of business in all sectors. Arshad, thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Paul. Thank you very much for having us.
Great to have you here. Perhaps you could give us a brief overview as to how the Institute supports businesses who may be looking to trade overseas.
Yeah, sure. So the Institute of Export, our website is export.org.uk. There's all the information is on there, and we support businesses of all different shapes and sizes at all different sort of stages in their export or importing journey. And we have a suite of products and services. One of the most popular ones and what we're renowned for is our public courses. So it's all on our website. We've got courses on SPS. We've got courses on excise duty, both relevant to the subject that we're going to be talking today. So if you're shifting alcohol, tobacco, controlled products, you want to know all about that, we book on one of the courses and you'll learn a lot about that. There's also introduction to exporting, advanced exporting, Incoterms, rules of origin, which is a particular interesting course at the moment, given the UK EU Trade Cooperation Agreement, and many other courses. Another one we have is lunchtime learning, very popular. We're first to market on many of these issues like Russian sanctions, Brexit, the Northern Ireland Protocol, etc. So log on to that once a month and get yourself up to speed on current and relevant events. We also have a very popular product that's known as the Customs Health Check, when one of our experts will come out to your site, check your process, your procedures, and give you a report, an impartial view, a fresh pair of eyes coming in, looking and reviewing your processes, just to give you an idea of how compliant you are. We also have Vega, so if you've got an absence or a sickness or a maternity leave, need to fill in an interim position, we can send one of our experts in who can manage that for you too. On top of that, we've got mini consultancies, 2-hour slots that we deliver online. We also do day consultancies if you need help with OP, IP, bonded warehouse, anything like that. Our experts can help you. Everything's detailed on export.org.uk.
That's great. And I know from personal experience that we've supported the Institute with a number of lunchtime learning events, and that many of the colleagues within Barclays and Specialist Client Solutions have been through the examination. So plenty of ways there for businesses to access the Institute's services, which is great. Arshad, we heard earlier from Rachel Gwyon from the Department for International Trade about the global opportunities for the agriculture, food and drink sector, especially across North America and many parts of Southeast Asia and China, due to the growing middle class, where that demand for high-end meat, protein and dairy products is strong, but also not forgetting the UK's innovative plant-based, organic and free from produce markets, together with all things agri-tech, of course. So with all of that in mind, what do you see as the biggest barriers for new exporters into these regions, and how can they overcome them?
Absolutely, and our food and agriculture and drink center is phenomenal. I mean, the range of cheeses, biscuits, confectionery, meats, dairy products. I mean, it's phenomenal. I mean, what we have in terms of variety compared to what's available in other countries, we really are spoilt. I mean, you just need to go down the biscuit aisle or one of these aisles, and we've got aisles and aisles and rows of variety and richness of products available to us. And yet, when you're on holiday somewhere and you go down one of these aisles, and you'll say, "Oh, is that all we've got here? Oh, is that it?" And so you can just see how sophisticated our markets are here in the UK, and that itself drives the potential for export. But what we're seeing, particularly from those medium and smaller companies, is the reluctance and the hesitance to go out and export, particularly in the post-Brexit environment that we're in. It's a bit difficult. It's a bit I'm not sure. Can we do it? Is our product exportable? So some of the barriers that we are finding is the know-how. It's simple. How can I export it? Where do I export it? And it's all about understanding, maybe coming on one of our courses and understanding, doing that research. It's all about just making sure what the market is and what the requirements are. I remember a company who wanted to export, I think, poultry product to South Korea, and it wasn't a UK source, it was a Belgian source, and there's something in the agreements there, or import restrictions within South Korea, that only British chicken is allowed and not European, but European beef is allowed and not British, or something along those lines. So it's about actually doing that research, going into that forensic level of what the import require, what you can and what you can't, and it's just understanding that. So it's really taking the key barrier is nothing sort of complex. It's the barrier is that desire to export. That's the barrier.
Now, I understand it is that almost the fear of the unknown, and whilst it can be a complex process to go through, going back to your point, it's understanding where to go to get the right guidance to help people. So that's great.
Sure.
Thinking of these areas, are there any specific sector challenges, such as licensing, documentation, certification, that businesses operating in this sector and these regions may face? And what are the most effective ways to manage them?
So there are some sort of challenges at the moment. We're now working and operating in as a third country now. So the documentary requirements for shipping into exporting into the EU is additional paperwork required at the moment, and that's all subject to negotiation. So one of the key challenges is really for businesses to keep abreast on regulatory changes, because everything's up for negotiation, and it's quite a changing situation. But I would say the opportunities are there. The requirements are, for example, if you're into fish and livestock and dairy, so there's lots of SPS requirements. These are phytosanitary products, so there are requirements for additional certifications. If you're in the livestock sector, you'll be needing veterinary certificates. If you're on flowers or even a used tractor, for example, there's regulations around that in terms of sending a used tractor out. So if it's been toiled and working in the fields in the UK, there may be a contamination risk here, so it needs to go through a certain process before you ship it. So there are a certain sort of criteria that you'll need to meet. If you're shipping out meat, for example, to the Gulf countries, they have a particular taste for British beef, for example. There'll need to be halal certification. So that's something to consider and keep in mind. If there is if you're shipping to South Korea, for example, they'll need to have full traceability in which abattoir and farm it came through, and they'd like that sort of audit and traceability to make sure that they're where it's coming from it is fully traceable. But there are lots of other ways we can manage these processes. A lot of processed food, biscuits, confectionery that really don't need those documents. So if you're in that sector, it's relatively easy to get exporting, particularly to those countries that you've talked about already.
No, that's really helpful. I think the really interesting piece as well is that, again, these sectors and these regulations, may change on a regular basis, and especially from the trade agreement with the European Union,
Yes.
Import and export controls are very fluid, shall we say. So always keep abreast on that and understand where to go. So that's great. One of the key things, I suppose, is, and a lot of people don't necessarily know what they don't know. So what are the most frequent questions to the Institute asked by businesses looking to export to these regions within this sector?
So we get a lot of questions. What is iPaths? What is Traces? What is Peaches? What are they? So these are portals, really, that the Europeans, the British, we all use for importing and exporting fruit and veg. So familiarization with that is one thing. So we get a lot of questions around what is it? How do I get access to it? Do I need to put something in? So those types of questions. Others is how do I export excise goods? So, we've got an order for Scottish whiskey. How am I going to manage that export process? So, we've got courses on that. But yes, a typical question comes in, especially from now. We've seen a boom, a growth in the sort of, I can't, the word eludes me, but small niche alcohol manufacturers, sort of a bit of a connoisseur sort of sector that's sort of grown. So from that, so a lot of companies are asking, oh, do I meet the rules of origin requirements on our imports? Can you just help us with that? Again, so they're bringing in molasses from Guyana and some of the other spices from Asia and putting it together, and can they meet those requirements? So that's another thing. How do I claim preference under a free trade agreement? We've got lots of free trade agreements coming in, and there's more in the pipeline. So how do I take advantage of that? And lastly, how do we ship fruit and veg?
No, thank you very much. I think that, again, we mentioned it earlier, and we touched on earlier, there are so many different issues that are floating around in this sector, and it can be complex, but actually using yourselves as the Institute, using the Department for International Trade to understand what the requirements are, using your own industry body as well, and trying to understand, what the requirements will be to be shipping product and goods out to different parts of the world, can also be incredibly helpful. So there's a huge amount of businesses, a huge amount for businesses to think about, explore and prepare for when looking to export, I suppose, efficiently and safely. So thank you, Arshad, for that guidance. And having worked with the Institute on a number of initiatives before, I know that your expertise is valued by so many different types of clients and parties across the economy. And it's great that you're able to support this series of videos. So thank you very much for today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
And now over to Adam White, Head of Agriculture in Barclays. Adam will be giving us an overview of some of the ways in which Barclays is supporting clients in this sector. Now, before we start, the views and opinions Adam expresses are his own and do not constitute advice from Barclays. And also note that, again, each business is different, and we do recommend that you carry out your own independent research before you make any decisions that will impact your business. But first of all, Adam, thank you very much for joining us today. Perhaps you can give us a bit of an overview about Barclays Agriculture and the team that you lead.
Well, thanks for having me, Paul. So my team look after farming clients and landowners across the UK through a very specialist expertise in agriculture. So we can apply that lens of what's happening in the sector, what are the trends, what are the ways in which we can help. Quite often, we'll look to support customers with diversifying their business into areas either away from farming or that are related to farming. And a part of that could involve international trade through either food, technology, or other types of products.
That's great, thanks. Now, turning to the matter of international trade and exporting, which you just touched on, what are our clients telling us about the challenges they are facing when trading internationally?
So I think the first thing is understanding the benefits of exporting. So what impact will it have on their existing business, their core business? It's not necessarily an easy thing to do in terms of administration, resource. So it's really understanding, do the benefits outweigh the potential costs, the potential inputs that they're going to have to make? I think also one of the things that I hear when talking to clients is, how do they identify new opportunities? So where can they go to find out which markets are best suited to their particular product? Is it a market that's going to have an interest or not? And it was great to hear from Rachel of the DIT as to the examples of UK exporters, and particularly the high value premier food sectors, which we know is a really, really popular subject. And I'll perhaps touch on that later. A key consideration is also the cultural aspect. So the way in which potential overseas clients do business. So what are the likely payment terms? How do you How do you build a relationship with an overseas client who potentially has a different type of business culture? What are the preferred routes to market? How are the products marketed or delivered? And whilst Barclays can't answer every single question, we can help some of those questions and certainly signpost to organisations such as the DIT and the Institute of Export. Documentation and regulation always comes up. That's without a doubt something that's always on people's minds, particularly if you've never traded overseas before. And the amount of administration and certification for agriculture and food and drink products is significant, notwithstanding other aspects such as Incoterms that define who is responsible for what parts of the distribution and delivery process. And again, that can be quite complex and intimidating, but Barclays can help businesses find out what is needed. And the final point is we frequently asked about how businesses can find out about the businesses that they will transact with. So how can they find out if it's a business that's worth dealing with, if there's any things they need to take into consideration? And this ease of insight can be a considerable challenge. So we're delighted to hear of the support that DIT can provide with real on-the-ground access and support in different countries.
That's great, thank you. What do you believe the biggest hurdles are to international growth, and how can businesses overcome these?
So I think a significant part of that challenge is knowing who to speak to and where to go for guidance and advice. That's always a challenge. I think whether it's international or anything you do in a business is who do you speak to for some advice and perhaps to bounce ideas off. The support shown by the DIT and also the Institute of Export helps to really demystify much of the complexity around practical issues. And once you start to have those conversations, it starts to take away that level of complexity. Many of our Barclays clients have spoken to us about the less identifiable aspects, such as setting their business up for exports, ensuring that their staff are trained in different processes and administration, and how they can do it in a sustainable fashion. So they're not just doing it as a one-off, it's part and core of everything that they do in their business. I think the other thing is that businesses look at exports as a key part of their strategy, and that ensures that issues such as the ones we've just talked about are baked into their processes. But there are still some financial challenges that have to be borne in mind, such as different payment terms, payment security, credit arrangements, possible impacts on cash flow, having longer supply chains or multiple routes to market, and how does the business manage the longer term payments that may be required without again impacting their core business, because that still has to be part of what they do. So I think those are a few of the things that we come up against.
That's great, absolutely spot on. And I think that those invisible pieces, by very nature, they're sometimes missed by people. So thank you for bringing those to the table, Adam. Thinking then about Barclays directly, how are we helping them overcome these challenges and maximising some of the opportunities that we've heard about today?
So I was fortunate enough to meet a fantastic dairy business up in the northeast recently, and they produce a fantastic quality British cheese. The British cheese is admired across the world. It's really a strong area of export for us. They're now exporting to the Middle East, particularly because they're appealing to an expat audience. And they're working with a couple of airlines who are very, very interested in showcasing British cheese, and they've had to go through some of those challenges. One of the things two of the areas we've been able to help them is firstly advising them on that cash flow piece as to how do they manage that and build that into any borrowing that they may need, but also working with our SCS, our specialist client solutions team to enable them to get to the right people that they need to. So we can help them with that payment security, and we have done that. There is a trade-off called the risk ladder, which we'll talk about, which is the way in which a client pays dictates how much risk they may be of non-payment. And we can help businesses understand those new risks, those different types of risks from trading internationally when receiving the payment up front or an open account. And we can help businesses understand the benefits of using documentary collections or letters of credits. But also, they may need to think about providing guarantees to a beneficiary, such as an advance payment guarantee or an HMRC bond for duty deferments. And we can help businesses with those requirements as well, ensuring they understand their responsibilities. And there will be people watching today who go, I've never heard of those things. And that's exactly where we can help, the DIT can help. and we can point people to the right ways of support. And of course, we can help with all kinds of payment acceptance methods, foreign currency requirements, exchange. For example, if a business has incomings and outgoings in the same currency, using a foreign currency account could help them to manage, reduce, or even extinguish any foreign exchange risks.
Adam, thank you very much for that informative summary. I think a lot of really useful pointers there to help businesses understand and navigate through those complexities. But as well as that, thinking about those areas and giving them a little bit of a push in terms of what they need to think about that might not be overly obvious to begin with. So that's great. Just a quick point from me. Letters of credit products are available to clients of Barclays Bank UK PLC through a referral to Barclays Bank PLC. Referred products will be owned and administered by Barclays Bank PLC. A portion of the revenue generated from referred products may be shared with Barclays UK PLC. Alternative service providers in the market may offer similar products, and all credit and risk products are subject to individual businesses' financial status. Terms and conditions apply. Adam, many thanks for your time today. Really do appreciate your insight. Thank you.